Hi everyone, so today I'm going to be taking you through a bunch of art techniques that you can really apply to anything you're painting. So here's some of my artwork that I can show you. So this one's quite simple, it's kind of comic style art. Then we've got a bit of abstract painting with acrylics. This is also done with acrylics, and it's used a load of different shading for the different difference in lighting. And then this here is one of my favourites. This is done in acrylics and it's used an abstract view on pineapples. So you can really employ this technique on any object really. So here you can see a similar painting done in watercolours actually. And this one, it's a painting of a giraffe. So you can use this colour combination basically to paint anything and kind of mess with the paints as you like. So for today's tutorial, I'm going to be going through how to recreate this painting. So some things you're going to need for this is a piece of paper, a pencil, some watercolour paints, a palette, some brushes and some water. So as I said earlier, you can employ these techniques to do an acrylic piece as well, but I will be going through that in more detail in future videos. So go ahead, grab a cup of tea and keep watching. Okay, so to begin with, we're just going to be sketching out the giraffe, and make sure you do this quite roughly. It doesn't need to be perfect, and have a reference image so that you can keep looking back and forth to see if you're kind of getting the same angles and every feature in the right place as they should be. Right, so at the end of your little sketch, you should have something looking like a bit like this, and it really shouldn't look like much at this point because you don't want the pencil to be too dark. You're doing all of the hard work with the paints really. So once you're at this point, you should be good to go and move ahead with the paints. So go ahead and grab some of these colours. So as I said before, it's an abstract piece, so it doesn't really matter what colours you use, but ideally you want to use opposite colours, so a bit of blue, a bit of yellows and reds and greens. And of course it's fine if you're limited with your watercolours. You can always make colours with the colours you've got. So if you add white to a colour, for example, it makes a much lighter version of that colour. And because this is watercolour, adding water lightens it automatically, as you'll see. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the lightest colour, and that's yellow. So go ahead and take quite a wide brush like so, and dip it in some water and a tiny bit of the yellow paint. You don't need too much really because it's watercolour. Grab an empty space on the palette and kind of add more water to it. You want to get it as light as possible to begin with, so this is going to act like a base colour. Next, what you want to do is go ahead and completely colour in the giraffe with this pale yellow colour. Okay, so once you've done that, you should end up with something that looks a bit like this, and it's normal for your paper to crinkle quite a lot. So you want to first of all go ahead and let that dry. Okay, so now what you've got is paint that's pretty much dry, and you want it to be as dry as possible because you don't want the paints mixing together with watercolours. Whereas with acrylics, you ideally rely on the paints combining and that creating a new colour. So what we're now going to do is work our way through the colours, and I'm going to start off with slightly darker yellow, and obviously you can just use the same yellow, just with less water this time, and then orange, then red, and so on. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be adding, if we look at our previous image, I'm going to be adding these reds and these blues and pinks and oranges in between. So for this part, I've been using a thinner brush, and obviously if you've only got one type of brush, you want to be using the wide bit if you want wider strokes, and obviously the edge of it if you want thinner strokes. And also one thing to note is where you see the curves of the animal, to make it seem more 3D, you ideally want to have your brush strokes according to those curves, and as you layer on paint, it tends to look more 3D, you'll see. Before you go in with the darker colours, you should know that where the light hits, the colour looks lighter. So it would help it look more 3D if you stick to the darker colours in edges and borders. So the blues and the browns, you want to ideally stick to the creases. Before the next part, it's really important that you let for the paint to dry, because you really do not want to be mixing colours at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and add on some more reds and browns and blacks once this is dry. So at this point, what I'm really doing is I'm using the edge of the brush to kind of create these details on the giraffe to make it look more lifelike. And you need to really be careful and go in and try and add depth to the painting. So I'm using more curved strokes. As you can see, that one's quite curved, creating depth. Next, I'm going to be going in with browns and blues for the outlines and the eyes and the mane. So keep watching. So when you get to the point of doing the outlines, you want to get a really thin brush because you want to be really detailed, and make sure that the paint is dry before you carry on. You should notice that I've gone in with the blacks and the browns to create these tiny details, and I'm telling you now that makes all the difference, makes it look more 3D. So that's the end of my tutorial. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Make sure you give it a go, and have a look at my art page. If you just type in my name, Mili Jayadeep, which is linked down in the description below.